The story opens with the Silverwing party locked in a fierce battle against a colossal dragon. Despite combining their powers, the team struggles to land any real damage. The dragon's tail slices through the air with terrifying speed, forcing the members to dodge or be crushed. They respond with their strongest attacks, but the creature's armored hide easily deflects them. As the dragon begins gathering energy for a massive strike, the team's mage quickly casts a protective barrier. Unfortunately, the spell isn't powerful enough to absorb the full impact, and the shield shatters under the force. In that critical moment, the group's cook, Dennis, throws himself in front of the mage, shielding her from the dragon's flames. Her arm still gets singed, prompting Dennis to swiftly brew a healing potion and tell her to stay focused. Katie, the vice captain, feels relieved knowing Dennis always has their backs, but the team's leader, VGO, doesn't share her sentiment. He looks more annoyed than grateful. Fueled by anger, VGO channels his frustration into an all-out assault, striking the dragon squarely in the eye. The beast lets out a deafening roar and spirals into a blind rage, attacking everything nearby with erratic fury. The Silverwing party somehow endures the chaos, and VGO rallies his teammates, shouting that they are the world's strongest adventurers. The scene then transitions to the Silverwing Guild Hall, where everyone except Katie sits around a large table. Dennis, curious about the sudden gathering, asks why VGO called for the meeting. Without hesitation, VGO accuses Dennis of ruining their latest mission. He claims that Dennis's use of the Dread Voice ability scared the dragon off, robbing them of victory. Dennis calmly reminds him that using that skill was VGO's own order. However, VGO refuses to accept responsibility, doubling down on the blame. Dennis recalls that their goal had been to defeat the dragon and harvest its rare materials for profit. But when the creature went berserk and the team was badly injured, VGO had commanded him to use Dread Voice, an intimidation technique meant to scare enemies away. Dennis followed through, successfully forcing the dragon to flee, saving everyone's lives, even if it meant failing the quest. At the time, Dennis thought VGO had made the right call, but now he sees that the man hasn't changed at all. VGO denies ever giving that order, and even accuses Dennis of being a spy sent by rival adventurers to sabotage their reputation. He then orders Dennis to leave the group. None of the other members dare to defend him, too fearful to challenge their leader. With a cruel smile, VGO mocks Dennis, saying he was never fit to be part of Silverwing anyway. In his words, the guild is for elite swordsmen, priests, and mages, not a mere cook. Though both he and Dennis have reached level 99, VGO insists that Dennis doesn't belong among real warriors. Realizing there's no point in arguing, Dennis tells them to do as they please and walks out, head held high, leaving behind the party he once loyally served. Later, he wanders through the bustling streets of the capital, quietly reflecting on his next steps. A small girl bumps into him, losing grip of her balloon as it drifts into the sky, and she begins to cry. Dennis quickly catches the balloon before it floats away and gently hands it back to the little girl, telling her not to let go of things that matter to her. From a distance, VGO watches the exchange with a cold smirk, silently preparing to set his true plan into motion. As Dennis prepares to leave the capital, Katie suddenly appears and blocks his path. She can't accept that he's leaving when no one else seems to appreciate his contributions. Katie knows better than anyone that Dennis was the glue that held their party together, handling medicine, alchemy, and every meal that kept them alive on their quests. Dennis brushes it off, saying someone else can take over his duties. But Katie shakes her head and explains that ever since he joined Silverwing, their ability to clear high-level dungeons skyrocketed, earning them the title of the strongest party in the world. The others may not realize it, but she knows Dennis's efforts behind the scenes were what kept them going. Katie pleads with him to return, but when Dennis refuses, she changes tactics and jokingly asks him to at least cook one last meal for her, or maybe prepare some boxed lunches for the team. Dennis can't help but sigh, thinking that food is all she cares about. Seeing that he's serious, Katie softens and asks if he truly intends to leave forever. When he stays silent, she asks what he plans to do next. Dennis replies that cooking is his calling, and he plans to open his own restaurant. Katie, desperate not to lose him, insists that he belongs with her since she was the one who discovered his talent in the first place. Dennis thanks her sincerely for inviting him into Silver Wing and recalls how well they had always worked together, something that likely sparked Vigio's jealousy, as the captain had feelings for Katie himself. Apologizing one last time, Dennis turns to leave. Even when Katie tries to command him to return using her authority as vice captain, Dennis doesn't stop. He knows one chapter of his life has ended, but another, more fulfilling one as a chef, is just beginning. A few hours later, Dennis arrives in a new city. Excited for a fresh start, he begins gathering supplies to set up his restaurant. While exploring the market, he spots a fascinating box that can chill anything without using ice. The shopkeeper calls it an ice box and claims it's a must-have for every eatery. Dennis is tempted, but then remembers advice from his favorite book, How to Open a Restaurant, which warns against unnecessary spending during startup. He decides to skip the purchase. After all, he can use ice magic when needed. Following the book's tips, Dennis buys an old, unused building, reaches out to suppliers for ingredients, and acquires essential cooking tools. The entire process fills him with excitement and a sense of accomplishment as he feels his dream drawing closer. The next lesson from the book advises not to handle everything alone. No restaurant can thrive without help. As Dennis considers hiring an assistant, he notices a commotion nearby. A crowd has gathered around a slave merchant presenting a young girl for sale. The trader explains that she once belonged to a noble family that lost a political power struggle, leading to her exile and capture. The onlookers doubt her noble heritage since she looks too plain, but many comment that she's cute and will grow into a beauty someday. Dennis feels a deep sense of pity as he watches her situation unfold. He wishes he could save her, but reminds himself that he can't rescue everyone. If he let every injustice consume him, he would never survive in this world. But as his eyes meet the girl's, empty and lifeless, he's suddenly reminded of his own childhood as an orphan. The slave trader begins the auction, starting at $300,000. Bidders quickly drive the price up to $800,000. Dennis hesitates for a moment, then raises his hand and bids $1 million, believing that will be enough to secure her freedom. But before he can celebrate, the shopkeeper he met earlier steps in and casually offers $1.5 million, saying she's cute and he intends to take good care of her. Dennis immediately senses something off about the man. Though he tries not to judge based on appearances, the murmurs from the crowd confirm his suspicion. Everyone knows this guy's a pervert, and the girl would be doomed in his hands. Realizing he can't stand by any longer, Dennis raises his bid again, determined to save her no matter the cost. The bidding escalates rapidly, surpassing $5 million before Dennis finally wins. Though he feels a sting knowing he spent nearly all his savings, he can't bring himself to regret it. He takes the girl back to his soon-to-open restaurant, buys her a clean dress, and helps her wash up so she can start fresh. As they walk home afterward, Dennis notices how slowly she moves, so he warns her to stay close or she might get lost. Sure enough, moments later, she's separated from him in the crowd, overwhelmed by fear and confusion. Just when panic sets in, Dennis appears, smiling gently as he apologizes for walking too fast. When they arrive back at the restaurant, the girl finally gathers the courage to ask why he bought her. Dennis admits there wasn't a real reason. She simply reminded him of something from long ago. When he asks for her name, she hesitantly tells him to call her Slave. Dennis frowns and asks if she has a real name. After a pause, she says, Allier. Dennis introduces himself in return and tells her she doesn't have to do anything for him. She can stay upstairs if she likes, or she's free to leave whenever she wants. Allier is stunned. No one has ever said something like that to her before. Before she can respond, her stomach growls loudly. Dennis laughs softly and begins cooking a meal for the both of them. The aroma quickly fills the entire restaurant, and Allier is mesmerized by the scent alone. When Dennis finishes, they sit down to eat together. The food is so good that tears roll down her cheeks as she eats. Dennis quietly observes her, thinking that whatever pain she's endured, he won't pry. He'll wait until she's ready to share it herself. When she starts to choke from eating too quickly, Dennis quickly helps her, worried but amused at the same time. Over the next few days, Allier begins helping Dennis decorate and clean the restaurant. Her enthusiasm brings life to the place, and Dennis can't help but feel grateful. Once everything is ready, he proudly names his new eatery the Adventurers Restaurant. He tells Allier she'll be their poster girl, and she starts practicing her customer greetings with determination. Meanwhile, Dennis feels a quiet confidence building inside him. Everything is in place. He's ready for whatever comes next. He vows that his cooking will captivate every adventurer who walks through the door, that they'll fall in love with his food and eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner there every single day. Of course, he also hopes they'll pay generously, since he's now broke after spending all his money on the restaurant and Allier. Just then, the door opens, and their very first customer walks in, clad head to toe in armor. And that's where episode 1 comes to an end.